Okay, we have 8 a.m. and I'm going to call our our April, what are we, May, I'm confused, May 4th meeting, the Oshkosh Committee on Aging meeting to order. We have some etiquette items to take care of. And I think after all this time, most of us are pretty good at this. Limiting background noise or activity as much as possible. Muting and unmuting in a timely fashion. Staying muted when not speaking. And if you have a question or comment, raise your hand and wave rather than using the chat room. No side conversations in the chat box and only official meeting business. For the benefit of with Bobby taking minutes, make sure you identify yourself when you're speaking. And when we do roll call, we have everybody unmute. Bobby will call your name, and then once you've responded, go ahead and mute yourself again. So with that, Bobby, would you do roll call?
Sue Ashton.
Here.
Heidi Basford Kirkhoff.
Here.
Julie Kiefer.
Here.
Julie Davids.
Here.
Ron Durkop.
Here.
Lindsay Temple.
Here.
Julie Maslowski is excused. Judy Ritchie.
Here.
Mike Ford.
Here.
Present
Okay,
8.
thank you. Moving on, approval of the April minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? Okay, then hearing none, I'll take a motion to accept.
So move. This is Ron.
And anyone second?
I'll second. This is Julie Kiefer.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as presented. Bobby will call the roll and respond appropriately.
Sue Ashton.
Here. Yes.
Heidi Basford Kirkhoff.
Aye.
Julie Kiefer.
Yes.
Julie Davids.
Yes.
Ron Durkop.
Yes.
Lindsay Temple.
She's there.
Lindsay Temple.
Yes.
Judy Ritchie.
Yes.
Mike Ford.
Present.
April 6th meeting minutes approved as written.
Okay. Bobby, are there any citizen statements?
None.
Okay. Any public comments for the agenda?
None.
Okay, then moving forward. Sue, would you like to introduce our speaker, please?
Sure. This is going to be our talk today is on personal alert systems. And Mark Colton is with CRC, Cooperative Response Center, and he's out of Austin, Minnesota. He's the business manager there. They work with both businesses and individuals. So I asked him if he could present today on just individual medical response systems that many people have, and thought he would be a good one to just kind of answer some general questions for us. So he's agreed to come and talk with us. Thank you, Mark, for coming.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Ann. I appreciate it for inviting me. And what CRC does, we do a lot of different things, but one of the areas that I work in, we are an alarm monitoring center. So requires a lot of redundancy, multiple locations in case of catastrophic events, etc. And we work with a network of dealers. We monitor individuals, but we do not provide services directly to them. We're not a B2C company. So I started at CRC in 2008, and I was initiated into the emergency response or personal emergency response system world very, very rapidly. We monitor about 10,000 personal emergency response systems and about 20,000 fire, medical, agriculture, and all video verification, anything that an alarm monitoring center could monitor. So I'm here to tell you everything about emergency response systems that you were afraid to ask or didn't know. And the first thing that I'll tell you, and all of the response and all of the experiences I have, because not only do we monitor them, but we also distribute equipment, the devices themselves. And I've been in many, many, many homes regarding installation with dealers to get a better understanding of what they're doing, how they're doing it, what's important to the end user, why, and how it all comes together. The first thing that I can tell you that's unequivocal is nobody ever wakes up and says, you know what, I'm 66 today. My balance isn't what it used to be. I really do need to get one of these. 90% of the time, it's a near miss. It's somebody that falls, either nearly hurts themselves or hurts themselves. And then it's a family member typically that will say, geez, mom or dad or grandpa or grandma or their aunt or uncle or whomever, maybe it's important for you to maintain your independence and get one of these devices. So if you need help, you know somebody will be there 24/7 by 365. And it is nearly always that way. Never somebody just voluntarily saying, hey, I need one of these. Most of the dealers, PERS dealers, and then the adult children, the non-emergency caregivers, really kind of sell it by saying you're providing peace of mind to your family. They don't have to worry about you all the time. Now that you've fallen once or twice, they worry. And it's very, very important. There in Europe, these are given out when you're 55, 60 years old. In most countries with a government-sponsored medical program, they just give them. They'll mail them to you. I don't know how many folks use them, but they're perceived as very differently in different parts of the world. The other thing I can tell you is, on average, at least at our alarm monitoring center, typically the average subscription, the average end user will use a device for 34 months. And that has been consistent since I started, and I'm the one who tracks that on a monthly basis. The difference is, there's a big difference. Those that are on, that get their medical alarm system through a vouchered program via Medicaid, those last typically much shorter periods of time than private pay. Private pay will last significantly. The subscription goes on much longer. Don't know why that is, because in most states that voucher, once you get it, if you're on public assistance, it will not expire. The other thing that I can tell you is the most common and the most popular system is still a landline system. As many people that don't use a landline have given up a landline. That is still the most popular system, and there's a reason for it. It's the most reliable. You think about folks who are elderly and medically at risk, typically they're at home more than they're anywhere else. And those devices simply are cost effective and, again, wildly reliable. You can say a lot about your phone system, but you can't say your landline system is that it's unreliable. It's just not true. Cellular systems are popular. There are a couple of nice cellular systems for in the home. They're not mobile, and they simply use an LTE dialer that dials the alarm monitoring center. So that's a nice option, because there are a lot of people that are giving up landlines. Of course, in rural areas, the toughest part is, do you have a good AT&T or Verizon signal? And we've found that depending on where you're at in the geography, it can be a challenge. Mobile devices, but the ads that you all see on TV, you'd think that mobile devices are so wildly popular and that you press a button and a paramedic is there in 30 seconds. Untrue. The mobile devices, there's only three companies that distribute mobile devices. Two out of the three, they're vertically integrated. They won't allow third-party alarm monitoring centers to monitor them because that's where the money is in the monitoring. And they charge a retail rate, not a wholesale rate. They are getting better. But if you think about the end user, what they still have to remember to charge the device regularly, wear the device, pick it up, turn it on, make sure that it's working. And then those devices are rather large. They have to be in an accessible area. If somebody falls, if somebody's having chest pain, if they've got to reach into their pocket, or if it's in a glove box or a purse, they're not going to reach that. That's why we say the most reliable device is something you would wear around your neck or around your wrist. But the GPS-enabled cellular mobile devices are popular. We distribute quite a few. However, I will tell you, I will always tell a dealer with a caveat: the person who is going to use this needs to be able to remember. They can't have memory care issues. They've got to be able to remember to charge it. Got to remember to wear it. They've got to remember to charge it at night. The GPS location that those offer, because they do work off of satellite, and the way that these work is you first have, it triangulates through the cellular network. Where is that device? And then that reaches out to the satellite network, pings it, sends a location to the alarm monitoring center, and connects the two-way voice. So we have a pretty good understanding of where that person is and who we're talking to automatically because of the database, the account number that we use with regards to our automation system will allow us to already know who that device is assigned to, who that account is assigned to. However, the satellite isn't perfect. If it's a metro area, if there's more than one story, we don't know if you're in a hotel or a high rise and you're in the middle of Chicago or Madison or Milwaukee. I don't know if you are on the 18th floor, the first, or the 70th, because it doesn't do elevation. I've got a pretty good idea of where you're at, but what we also see is there's about 200 meters of what we call satellite drift, which means in any direction, that individual device could be about 200 meters away, which becomes problematic if that person doesn't respond through the two-way voice. The protocol is then to dispatch 911. They can determine, okay, well, we'll go and look. If they can't find somebody, it becomes very, very troublesome because then you have a device that's pinging. We can ping it. Yeah, the device is still there. Will the device get dropped? Is there nobody there? Is there somebody, if it's in a rural area, are they in a ravine? Are they far away? So those situations do happen. They're real. I'm grateful to say at the organization that I'm lucky enough to work for, we've never had one where an individual could not have been found. We've had two incidents where devices were dropped out of pockets and then went off and had to be recovered. The other item I will tell you is AT&T is the primary network that these devices work with. Verizon is a great network. However, they're very reluctant to work with the manufacturers of devices outside of regular security devices that don't require two-way voice. And that's just the way it has been for years and years and years. The number of individuals, because of the baby boomers retiring and aging, that are using these devices is growing. I anticipate in the future, and then the technology already exists, because if you've got a smartwatch with a paired with a smartphone or you wear a Fitbit or whatever, you know, via Bluetooth technology, you can learn a device into your phone, and that will become your button. That will become, and Apple's already able to do so much with their smartwatch, but that will become the new help button, and it'll be an app that runs in the background. It'll know how much battery life is left in your watch and your battery or in your phone. It will manage all of that. It will shut things down to ensure that, oh, battery is getting low. I need to make sure, because this is a life safety device, that everything keeps working. So there are great advancements in medical emergency response systems. However, they still are limited to the person has to press the button. And we hear that very, very frequently, where someone will say, wait, they'll fall, break a bone, it's 5 a.m., and they will wait until 7, and they'll say, I didn't want to bother anybody, it was so early. And they don't recognize we are a 24/7 alarm monitoring center. That's all we do, is monitor alarms. So the key success, or one of the keys to success upon deployment are, one, explaining to the end user you can use this anytime, no matter what. And two, that it's there to keep you independent. And that three, you're going to have 90% of the alarms that we get for these devices are accidental. I bumped my pendant. I must have pressed the button. I'm sorry. That's okay. Your system's working great. Hope you're having a great day. And that's okay. And making sure that an alarm monitoring center is compassionate and understanding and empathetic. The other item, the financial part of this, most companies will provide an agreement, and it's a 24 or 36-month agreement. Oftentimes it'll be that, and then you purchase the equipment, or it's evergreen. They'll supply equipment in good working order as long as you are a monthly subscriber, and monthly subscriptions are anywhere from $22 to $60. I've seen them as high as, depending on, is it cellular? If it's just a landline system, they're less expensive because they've got to include the data for the cellular device. And the one item is, you never want to play beat the clock. You don't know somebody's condition. And two, I know Lifeline and I know Life Alert, because I've been a subscriber to both years ago, just to see what was their service like, onboarding process like. They will refund back to $1 if that end user passes before the end of their commitment regarding their first subscription, because after that it evergreens. And then typically the agreements are written where you've got to let the customer, the company, know who's monitoring you, who's sold you the devices, that you need to quit your service. Typically it's in the contract, and it's kind of goofy. It's the month that you signed up. You've got to let them know that. So if you signed up in April of 2021, and it was a 2-year contract, and in April of 2023, no later than April 2023, you have to let them know that you'd like to resign your agreement. Seriously, my company, we don't do that. It's all month to month, and then we let our alarm dealers, they do their own contract with the end user. So now I've spent, I better take a breath here. By the way, my name's Mark Colton. No, I'm sorry. Who has questions? I'm sure there are a few. Anybody? Go ahead.
A lot of times you can pay extra money and it will help you assess a fall if somebody falls.
That's a great question.
Are those accurate or not?
So the fall detectors, the mobile device, you can enable a fall detector where the entire device, and what they use is an algorithm, built-in software, where No different than your smartphone will know if you're in portrait or landscape mode. It also will measure the rate that it's falling. So each one of these companies that has a fall detector has an algorithm that they think is the best algorithm. You can take some of the pendants, because if you have a landline based system or a non-mobile system, it has to be the fall detector is a pendant. It has to be worn around the neck, because on the hip it won't detect a fall nearly as well. You can take those pendants and swing them around your finger no differently than you did if you were a lifeguard and had a whistle and were bored, back and forth, and it will not go off, typically. However, if you fall, the short answer is they're about 80% effective, 75 to 80% effective. So plop down on the sofa or the bed, we get all sorts of false alarms, and we say, that's fine. We understand. We'll reset your system. And we've often heard too, where somebody will have fallen, the device did not alert. They have to press their button, and we say, well, we let the dealer know it's not 100% effective, but it's better than nothing. So that's a very good question, and that typically the dealer will charge a little bit more for fall detection. Typically, they don't pay more for the monitoring. It's just another alarm notification that comes in.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
This is Ron. I've got a question regarding whether your company is involved in monitoring for systems where a person would have an alert on their door or certain areas of the house to monitor whether that person has maybe gone outside and at 2 o'clock in the morning and needs to have some emergency response. Do you get involved in that too?
Yep. Yeah. So we've got senior communities that we monitor, many of those, and some of them will have a memory care wing, and it's an interesting world. There will be they're issued shoes. Everybody's issued shoes in the memory care wing, and the reason they are, some folks have access to the doors opening and closing. In the heel of the shoe, there is a transmitter that allows somebody to enter or leave. If they get close to the door will lock. If somebody that has access, they can go through it. But if somebody that has memory care problems, that door will lock. But really what you're talking about is geographical monitoring. And yes, we do. So there is a mobile medical alarm system that a company by the name of LogicMark distributes, and you can draw circles, pull up a map, the end user can, or their loved one or the dealer, and they can enable geozones. And if they leave that zone, they're going to get a notification. The non emergency caregiver will get a notification and that location. The alarm monitoring center will as well. And the idea is to be able to track somebody, but only so far as when they leave or re-enter it. Now, we can ping the device, the cellular device, and as long as it has battery power, we can locate the device, as long as you've got network. So you've got to have cellular network and you've got to have battery power. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, it was like, what was it now? It escapes me here. If you have medical assistance, is that most likely going to cover this versus just Medicare?
So it depends on your Medicare program, but Medicaid, yes, if you have assistance, like I know in the state of Wisconsin, there is a voucher program. There are 3 or 4, they've cut up the state in 3 or 4 different pieces. And as long as there are vouchers available, somebody that requires an alarm to be monitored will be eligible. And it works similar to this. Somebody will have, let's say, surgery, or somebody has very limited mobility, and the attending physician, and you're in a medical facility, and we'll say we need to discharge you, and you really should be in a convalescent care facility for at least 30 to 60 days, but you've used up, let's say, that benefit already because of another accident or another incident or another procedure. So I cannot uh, um, release you unless you agree to take one of these devices. It will be at no charge to you. The monitoring will be at no charge to you. And they give them a list of the qualified providers that have a contract with that particular part of the state. And then that day, typically they have to, before they leave their discharge, they have to make an appointment to get the device installed.
And do you help with that installation?
Well, we help in terms of we have alarm dealers, and when we know when somebody's getting a new device based on our database when they press their button for the first time. And then we'll introduce ourselves to the end user, and we'll ask them if they want to test the device around the house to make sure that the transmitter will work throughout the entire house and that we can hear them throughout the entire house, because these landline and or any device for the home, it is an amplified speaker and a very, very sensitive microphone, because we need to hear somebody when they're in their laundry room or basement, if possible. And I will assure you, oftentimes when the device is between the person and the television, we hear a very, very loud television. And oftentimes we'll call the person on their landline if their button was pressed, and if they pick up, they'll say, "Oh, I must have bumped my button." Or sometimes it's certainly as a fall or a spill and whatnot. But yeah, it's a black art to monitor these devices for sure.
And what about like a lock for the people to get in so they don't have to break the door down?
Yeah, so we do one of two things as an alarm monitoring center. If there's a hidden key, we put within our electronic form for the dealer to fill out regarding they have to get information from the end user. And if there's a hidden key, we'll let the authorities know where that hidden key is. If there's a lockbox, we'll let them know what the combination to get into that lockbox is. Yes, and that's great, because we have had many doors broken down where unfortunately the person was fine. They didn't hear anybody at their door. They were startled, and it becomes problematic.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Mark, this is Ron again. I've got a question about range, as far as how far from the home base, if you will, can a person be monitored? In other words, if they want to go out for a walk around the park or something, are they out of range?
They are. They're if it's a landline device or if it's a cellular device for the home, typically the range is, and there are landline devices that have wonderful transmitters where the pendant becomes the two-way voice device. You can talk into it, but 400 feet is about the maximum range. And we've tested these. The devices that we distribute, I've seen some get as many as 800 or 900 feet, but by and large, we always say 400 to 450 feet. And that's kind of as the crow flies, right? So it's also dependent on, is there a tin roof, metal roof on that dwelling? Is the device itself, surrounded by, a big concrete chimney or something? So where it is in the house also can impede the performance of that transmitter.
One of the things that I run into, and I live in a 55 and up building, but I did the Meals on Wheels program for 34 years,
Sure.
as well as having my dad with a unit. One of the big things I see is not wanting to wear their unit, their pendant or their bracelet in the shower, all these other activities, that if it's next to their bed at night, that's sufficient. And
Yeah.
that's not where they're having their falls.
Yeah, the kitchen is the worst, the most dangerous room in the house. The kitchen and the bathroom, no doubt about it. And stairs. So there is, oftentimes I'll hear the same thing. We got the system for my mom or my dad, but they don't use it. He typically, and it's real world scenario, once somebody has a near miss or a real fall and they get hurt, they wear that thing pretty religiously, or it's one neighbor who's got wears a transmitter as well, and they say, oh my gosh, I had a spill, I pressed my button, thank goodness ambulance was here, I dislocated my shoulder, I hurt my hip, whatever. The other person will say, you know what, I got to start wearing mine too. This is ridiculous. I've fallen twice and or nearly fallen. So that is a big part of it. Now, related to another question earlier, there are other transmitters. You can get a push button emergency, just a standalone button that will learn into a landline system or cellular system. And it just learns in as a zone. It runs on regular batteries, but through radio frequency, you can press that, put it in your shower or in your bathroom or next to your bed if you don't want to wear the pendant. We've had people do that, or they'll have their pendant and it'll be beside their bed, within an arm's reach. So it isn't a perfect system, but it certainly is. If you wear the device, if you wear the button, it is very, very reliable. And I know that because we get letters from end users, family members thanking us, how quickly we responded, et cetera, saved somebody's life. So yeah, there's certainly, if somebody's medically at risk and they stay at home, they're not out in public where a good Samaritan can help, this is probably the best thing they can use. They don't have to fumble with a phone. They don't have to try to dial 911. They don't have to get to a phone. And is it as quick as summoning the 911 yourself? No, because you're adding an extra layer. That's what we're doing. But it is reliable.
So, okay, well, thank you. And thank you so much for all the information. I'm sure that all of us have learned one or two little items that we hadn't. Brenda,
Thank
did have
you
your-
for having me. I've enjoyed this. Enjoy the rest of your day in God's country. I absolutely love Wisconsin. My folks used to live there, and I hope, well, I live in Iowa. Our office is in Austin. I hope one day I will be somewhere on a beautiful lake in Wisconsin retired. So I'm jealous. Enjoy yourselves. Have a great
Thank you. Brenda, did you have a question?
I appreciate the tips and tricks. That was what my question were. How do we get people to wear pendants? Thing is, when you press the button, does that signal to your center that EMS is to be dispatched, or is there typically loved one or an emergency contact prior to the EMS?
That's a great question. There's a protocol that each subscriber has their own, but typically there's trash. So if they've fallen, we'll ask them immediately, do you need help? Do you need an ambulance? If they don't, if they say, no, I just need help getting up, or I need help getting out of my chair. We require our alarm dealers, they've got to have a list of non-emergency caregivers. Oftentimes it's a neighbor, it needs to be somebody close. Oftentimes it is a couple of brothers, sisters, whatever, and then we call one because they're first on the list, and we always say whoever's first on the list, that's who we're going to call first. So put the most responsible sibling on the list first, and they'll be tied up. Can you call this person? Can you call this? So, and then we'll check back in. We can reconnect with the device, with the end user, and say, oh, you know what, your son was busy, or we couldn't get a hold of him. but we got a hold of your daughter. She'll be there in about 10 minutes. And then usually they'll say, okay. And then we'll check back in and say, and this is all automated in an alarm monitoring center. And they'll say, okay, is your daughter? Yep, daughter's there. Yep, I was able to help my mom. She'll be fine. So yes, great question. Thank you.
Okay,
How would we contact you? You cover Wisconsin. What would be your
We do,
contact?
but we only work with alarm dealers.
Oh, okay,
So we don't work with the public. We don't work directly with consumers.
okay.
Otherwise, we do work with, I think you found out about us through Evergreen
Mhm.
Home, and they've been a long time partner with CRC. But yeah, if you got questions, Ann, just give me a call, and I'm sure we can get
Okay,
them in Wisconsin to help you out.
okay, thanks.
okay, well, thank you.
Yep, thanks everyone. I'm gonna leave the meeting now. Have a great Tuesday. Take care.
Thank you, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, moving on. Does anyone have any old business? Okay, new business. We've been asked to discuss and decide whether we want to continue meeting virtually or in person. Does anyone have any comments to that? And then we'll take a vote. Does anyone have any comment? Okay, who prefers in person? I'm going to raise your hand. Okay, you want in person? Sure. Okay, Bobby, can you count? I'm sorry, that was rude. Can you count how many hands for the roll call? Just in the interest of time. To me, it looks like a majority.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. That's what I counted as 6. 7. I didn't see.
Okay.
six in the dark.
So we have a majority. So we will plan on our June meeting being in person, barring any changes with the COVID recommendations. Then moving forward, Articles B and C on the agenda, update discussion of the governor's task force on caregiving and the information and discussion of the Wisconsin Aging Advocacy Network's position on the governor's budget are basically the same information. So Ron, would you go ahead with that, please?
Yes, you'll recall in our February, I think it was the March meeting, we talked about the governor's task force on family caregiving and their recommendations. And I want to talk about 3 of those recommendations that have now made it into the proposed budget for the state of Wisconsin, the biennial budget that is going through the Joint Finance Committee process right now. And Ann is looking for the screenshot that I'd like to have up. But just by way of introduction, the Wisconsin Aging Advocacy Network position on these 3 areas that we'll be discussing will be our focus here this morning. And just by way of introducing that, unpaid family caregivers allow loved ones to remain in their homes much longer and sometimes permanently without using any state funding. And today there are about 578,000 Wisconsinites who are unpaid family caregivers, providing about $7 billion in unpaid care. And just for Alzheimer's and dementia, around 200,000 family caregivers in Wisconsin provide around 204 million unpaid hours at a value of about 3.4 billion. So we're talking about a huge number of people, and a lot of caregiving going on that's unpaid. These are not paid providers. And as our population continues to age, now more than ever, we'll need to support our Wisconsin family caregivers. The first area that's being proposed is a caregiver tax credit. This would create a $500 caregiver tax credit per year for unpaid family caregivers. And it should be noted that on average, family caregivers spend around $7,000 per year out of pocket in costs related to their caregiving. And for Alzheimer's disease, which is probably the most expensive disease in America, the total lifetime cost of care is estimated at over $350,000 during that lifetime of that person with the dementia. And then the second area is Alzheimer's Family and Caregiver Support Program. It's a program that's been around for probably about 20 years, and it provides assistance to low and middle income families throughout the state that have a member who's living with Alzheimer's disease or dementia. And the provision here that's in the governor's budget would be providing for 500,000 annual increase in funding for the AFCSP program. And it would also increase the maximum household annual income that is allowed for qualifying for this benefit from $48,000 per year to $55,000 per year. And it should be noted that nearly 60% of individuals rate the emotional stress of caregiving as high or very high, and nearly 20% of caregivers for a loved one with Alzheimer's or another dementia in Wisconsin have been diagnosed as having depression. So we know it's a serious issue. And then the final area is with the Wisconsin Family Medical Leave Act. There's an effort to expand that. Currently, the WMFLA covers only acute medical conditions. And this provision would make the benefit available to caregivers caring for someone with a chronic condition, and is extended to include grandparent, grandchildren, and sibling caregivers. So in essence, a caregiver would mean any person other than a paid provider who provides care for a person with dementia.
Okay.
So expanding the Wisconsin Family Medical Leave Act is really important, especially for working caregivers. And about 25% of caregivers are working caregivers. And for those that are over age of 25 are in that group. So 1 in 4 workers over the age of 25 are still family caregivers. So getting time away from work, et cetera, to participate in caregiver staffings and staffings on care are pretty important to that group without having to take time away. So any of these areas, share your thoughts now with your Wisconsin State Senator or Wisconsin Assembly representative, because all of these items are going through the Joint Finance Committee process as we speak. So in the next couple of days, it's really critical. If you have some input you want to share, one way or the other, now is the time to be doing it. So thank you.
Does anyone have any questions of Ron? Okay.
Go ahead,
does
Mike.
anyone-
Yeah, sorry, Ron. So, where can we get those documents that you had up there?
You should be able to get them from the senior center. I think they do have them. I can resend them if that'd be helpful, Ann
They
or
come in
Bobby.
they come in your minutes for next month. Whatever was discussed at this meeting
Okay,
come as attachments to you in an email.
awesome. Thank you.
I was just going to say though, if anybody needed them earlier than that, I think contacting the senior center, or you could contact me directly. I'll be glad to email them to you. I don't know that they made it on the screen. So, sorry that didn't work out. Thank you.
Okay, and Mike, anytime you can certainly contact one of us to get the information early on. As long as I'm the chair, I'll try to remember to get things to you maybe a little sooner. A lot of times we've got full documents and we just do a very brief synopsis. And there's a couple of links of groups, Badger Aging List or whatever, that have a lot of senior issues that we can also connect you with.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. And no, don't hesitate to ask questions of us.
I know I'm the newbie, so I appreciate that.
Well, we've all been there. Okay, then moving on with other business. First of all, I'd like to thank Ron and Sue for their service to the committee over the past years. They've done a great deal for the committee itself, as well as the greater community, and definitely advocating for the elders. They've both chosen not to be reappointed. So that leaves us with openings for 2 more committee members, as well as 2 alternates. And anyone that may be interested can go to the city website under boards and commissions, and the application form is there, and they can just go ahead and submit it. If any of our members have ideas of someone who could be beneficial to the committee, please let me know or Jean, and we'll be able to make some contacts and encourage them. Okay, then it looks like we pretty much have conducted all of our business. Our next meeting date is June 1st. We're going to be Ron, actually, you were working on that for our speaker. Ron?
I think you were taking care of that, Judy. It has to do with the dementia crisis
Oh,
response.
that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah. And Brenna's working with us on, and the ADRC. And Mike, one of the things too is you'll see Bryn Seaman from the ADRC on with most of our meetings. We felt that they, rather than us trying to do a lot of exploring of information, we've been able to work with Bryn, that she shares a great deal with us and does a great job of educating us. So put her on your list of contacts for more information. So yes, we are looking at some dementia crisis interventions. We will also have the election of the 2021-2022 chair and vice chair. And so keep in mind who you think might be appropriate for that. With that, I'll have Bobby call the roll for an adjournment. Everyone on? Bobby, go ahead.
Sue
Or
Ashton,
a motion to adjourn, I should say. Ron, you want to do a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
This is Ron.
I'll second Julie Keefe.
Okay. Okay. With that, Bobby, would you call the roll, please?
Sue Ashton,
Yes.
Heidi Bassford Kirkhoff, Julie Kiefer,
Yes.
Julie Davids,
Yes.
Ron Durkop,
Yes.
Lindsay Temple, Judy Ritchie,
Yes.
Mike Ford.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn at 8:48. Carried.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone, and we'll see most of you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.